You got Mac and Mac here. John McMullen, Jody McDonald hanging with you on Birds 365. Mark Frank couldn't join us a little later in the show, getting the recap from John yesterday, who was at the Eagles joint practice. Last time you're going to see the starters before New England when game one rolls around. Don't expect any. And when I say any, I mean any of the Eagle starters to play in the game against the Colts tomorrow night. Sorry, that's just the way not only works in the NFL, but specifically with the Philadelphia Eagles. Because John and I have thought Colts are going to play probably their starters because they've decided that Anthony Richardson needs some more snaps. So we're assuming that means they're going to keep the first team offensive line in there, probably the top wide receivers. So the Eagles are going to be going with their backups against the Colts ones. If you're thinking about betting it all, I'd still bet the Eagles because the Colts are just that bad. As John told us, Shane Steichen's got his work cut out for him. They're just not a very good team this year. But getting done what the Eagles needed to get done in practice yesterday, some guys still fighting for roster spots. And we're going to talk about this heavily on Friday and Monday. Tuesday's cutdown day, right?
Yes, Tuesday. A week from yesterday, I believe. Yes, we're on Wednesday, correct?
Right, which everybody is. There's a time where you got to get all your cuts in by. I don't know what it is.
4 o'clock.
1, 2, 4 o'clock.
Yeah,
on Tuesday. All right. So then there is this massive movement. It's like the earth moving in the National Football League, where just hundreds of guys who were employed the day before are no longer employed. And they're available for any team who wants to claim them. There's a whole waiver process. We'll go through all of that when we get closer to Tuesday. But the Eagles still have some jobs up for grabs, Johnny Mac, and this roster is not 100% set. And I'll ask you this again.
Can I jump in before we get? I know we're going to get to this, Jody, but I don't want everybody to lose their mortgage payment because of me. I would not bet on the Eagles in this game because my theory on preseason football, which I've said to you, is the team usually with the best third quarterback wins. And I think, Sam Ehlinger is a pretty good third quarterback in this league. And I think Gardner Minshew is better backup. So I wouldn't necessarily say the Colts aren't going to win this game, but they're going to be a bad football team. For those who like to bet on preseason football, which I would not recommend, by the way. But anyway, sorry.
And as crazy as this sounds, I watched a lot of the Colts-Bears game last week because it just happened to be on national TV because I happen to have a national show coming up. So I did watch a bunch of it. And, Ehlinger played okay. Yeah, I'd still bet the Eagles if I were you. But that's just me. Yeah, John doesn't want any part of it. I will put the same caveat out there. You shouldn't be betting preseason games. It's foolish. Bet NFL futures about who's going to win divisions and yardage and stuff like that. That is, if you have to have action, that is what I would suggest. But if you're just the kind of guy who has to have action on a game, if you're going to sit down and watch it, I'd still bet the Eagles because the Colts are not going to be a good football team this year. But I'm just saying, if the Colts win on Thursday night, I can almost guarantee you it will be because Derek Barnett takes an uncalled for penalty. He did it again yesterday in practice. He just blatantly dismisses the rules of either actual calls you can and can't make and or etiquette in practices. He smacked the quarterback's arm down yesterday, which you just don't do. There's a no-touch zone to the quarterback, specifically a rookie guy who's going to be the Colts starter who was out there yesterday. Is he trying to get himself cut, or can he just not control himself?
I think he just can't control himself at this point, and he's not getting cut. It's interesting because you teased this before the break. So really quickly, Jeremiah Washburn, who's his position coach, spoke yesterday, just coincidentally, and he was raving about Derek Barnett. Like this organization, this team thinks way more of him as a football player than the fan base does. You're not going anywhere, especially with the injury concerns with Nolan Smith now. They think Hassan Reddick's going to be back week 1, so they're not as concerned there. But minor surgery, it's only minor to those who don't have it. You never know what's going to happen. Yeah, we talked about the insurance aspect of it, and now it's, they got three. Kyron Johnson's not there because he had an appendectomy, so they're really down on edge rushers right now. And they have tremendous depth. They're still, they still throw out Brandon Graham and Josh Sweat and Derek Barnett, and it's pretty good. They love him. But yeah, he's not disciplined. I mean, that's where I'll agree with you. He's not disciplined. You can't keep doing this stuff.
Right. And if a rookie does this, you understand he's not a second-year player. You go, come on, you guys start growing up here a little bit. Third-year player, you should be like threatening the guy's job. This is Derek Barnett's 6th year in the NFL, and he's still doing these things, making these foolish mistakes
And by the way,
dumb penalties.
I'll give you the perfect example is Jason Kelsey. Like Jason does what he does, right? Which he shouldn't have done. And he comes out, he wasn't scheduled to talk, and he comes out and he does over a 10-minute press conference, saying he made a mistake. He can't do that, holding himself accountable. Derek Barnett's not as high profile, but you're not going to see him doing crap like that ever. Yeah, I mean, he's not disciplined. He's not a disciplined football player. And I think it was overblown to a degree. I like to put the context on everything. People say he gets a penalty every game. He doesn't. You can look it up easily. But he gets way too many. And I think that criticism is fair to point out. He gets way too many, and he's a veteran player, as you point out. It would have changed by now if he learned from the mistakes. He's not learning from the mistakes. But the Eagles seem willing to put up with it.
Who do you think has a better chance? Take them both off the Eagles, put them on another team, new scheme, whatever else. Who do you think would have a better chance to have a more productive year? Janarius Robinson or Derek Barnett on another team?
Oh, yeah. I mean, they're not close as players. Derek Barnett's a much better player. I mean, Janarius Robinson is, like I said, if you were writing a Hollywood script, Jody, and they said, hey, it's a football movie, I need an edge rusher, you're going to cast Janarius Robinson. He looks like an edge rusher. He's physically impressive. He's basically the Tyree Jackson of the defense. But I mean, technique-wise and all that stuff, it's not even in the same ballpark. And remember, he was drafted, he was in Minnesota before he got here. He didn't do anything there. That team has a reputation, at least before, Ed Donatel got there, of really developing good defensive linemen for years, for decades, really, going back to the Purple People Eaters. And they didn't, he never got off the ground there. So I think a lot of people are impressed by his physical stature, and they should be, because he just looks the part. But yeah, Derek's a much better player.
Well, we'll see about that. If the Eagles don't keep Robinson, I bet you another team picks him up. You're right, Minnesota let him slip through their fingers, and the Eagles have now. If they let him go too, he's the kind of guy who's going to get a job somewhere else. Mark my words. All right, so the guy who's going to make the decision more than anybody else, and I know it'll be a collective decision, but Howie Roseman is the main decider of this roster and who stays and who goes. And he's going to be the guy who's going to formulate the 53 when they get to it. I had Andrew DeCecco on WIP with me Monday night, and I asked him this question. He had a intriguing answer. I want to see if yours matches up with him. If Howie Roseman is going to make a trade before Tuesday, not roster claiming off another squad's roster, the Eagles are going to cut and they're going to get down to 53, but that doesn't mean that's the 53 who will be there when you get to New England the following Sunday. There's moves after cut down. You cut somebody because you pick up someone who gets cut by somebody else. There's massive moving. It's days after the actual 4:00 deadline. But if Howie Roseman does what he did last year and makes a trade prior to the cutdowns, and that's what he did, but when he acquired his starting safety, we all worried about, we all thought that something could happen, and damn if it didn't happen, and they get their starting safety, be a trade prior to cutdown. If he's got a trade in him, which means giving up a draft pick, you got to give up something to get something. If you tell me they're going to include Derek Barnett in a trade and the other team's going to look at it as a plus, I'm going to laugh at you. But if Howie Roseman's going to do a trade, what position do you think he's going to be willing to give something up to get a better level player than someone who's going to hit the waiver wire on Tuesday?
Probably the defensive fronts, because they're so deep. In both.
I'm not talking about who they'll give up. I'm talking about what they're trying to acquire. What position they're going to target, because they think they need an upgrade at that position as of right now, and they'd be willing to give up an asset, probably draft pick, to get that player and upgrade that position.
I still think linebacker. I still think linebacker is the most logical one. And then from there, believe it or not, I think it might be backup offensive line. I don't think they're, somebody asked me on a different show, like, besides the obvious linebacker safety, uncertainty of running back, what's your biggest issue with the Eagles? What could derail the season? And I said, multiple injuries on the offensive line. I've already seen it at the end of the Doug Peterson era. If the wrong two go down on that offensive line, and all of a sudden, we've already seen it a little bit in training camp. Landon Dickerson got spiked, had to sit out for a little bit. Suo Pet is in there. Josh Sills is in there. You've seen multiple times the difference between this team when Lane Johnson's on the field, when he's off the field.
Oh, yeah.
If Jordan Mailata goes down, if obviously Jason Kelce, and everybody says, well, he's played 100, and the averages are coming around. He's played he's in that Zach Ertz camp, and he's always injured, but he always plays through it. Yeah, they're not nearly as deep as they once were on the offensive line. And I think Jack Driscoll's a good backup. Tyler Steen's got potential, but they're not nearly as deep as they once were.
Along the offensive line, I'll give you the answer that Andrew gave me, which I thought was interesting. Can Josh Sills make this team?
Yeah. They like him, but I would say,
have they been watching him play? Now, I'm not Jeff Stoutland, and I'm not going to begin to tell you that I can evaluate offensive linemen as well as Jeff Stoutland can, but I think I know a little bit, and I think Josh Sills has not good, just flat out bad. And
he has
carry a guy just because he opened your eyes last training camp. That's now a lifetime ago. If you're talking about last training camp, John, there's a lot that's gone down between then and now, and they're going to keep him just because he somehow caught the eye of Jeff Stoutland 13 months ago.
And here's the thing: if you would told me that the week he came back, they just threw him right in there, and I said, wow, they really like Josh Sills. And then he played, and it's gotten worse. So if you would have told me those first 2 days of practice, I said, well, Josh is going to make the team. They have those issues that I just said, backup offensive line. He's going to make the team, which stunned me because I didn't think I'd ever see him again, to be honest. And now that he's played, it's clearly he's not ready to play. Now, is that because of the inactivity? They might think that. That's why I say he's got a chance. If it wasn't, if he was here the whole time, I'd just say, well, he's not playing well. He's the one who got beat on the safety. I mean, that was a just terrible job, letting somebody get around the backside in that situation in the preseason game. Yeah, he hasn't played well, but who are you going to keep? Suo Pet or Josh Sills? That's probably what it's going to come down to. Suo Pet is not untouchable by any stretch. They already cut him last year, and they got him on the practice squad. So, yeah, he's got a chance. I think that was the question. I'm not saying he's going to make the team. And then Dennis Kelly, when he got here, I said, well, Dennis Kelly's done nothing. I don't think he's going to make the team. They're not good with the backups on the offensive line.
I agree with it, and part of that for me is Josh Sells, and I don't know what the guy what they saw him last year in practices. They got a better look than I do. All I know is he was embarrassing the other night in the preseason game. He's probably going to play a lot again because he needs reps. Because he was out of it because of his suspension, as long as it was. So he desperately needs to play if you want to get a true fair evaluation. But sometimes it's not true or fair, that you got to make an evaluation on the fly. And that's probably what they have to do here with Stills. One other guy I want to ask you about. Jack Driscoll done anything to open your eyes this preseason? I know we all factored him in as a good swing guy and has experience and held up his end of the bargain. No, it's a drop-off from a all-pro offensive lineman the Eagles have, but so you factor that in your evaluation, and his drop-off wasn't all that bad. But he hadn't really done a whole hell of a lot to make you say, all right, if he goes down, this won't be a big drop-off so far this year in camp for me. Is he for you?
No, but he's not done anything to close my eyes and go, oof. Whereas other offensive linemen have. So to me, he's just an average NFL offensive lineman. And that's fine for a backup. And, if he's got to play a short stint, he's fine. The more he plays, the more it's going to be an issue, especially if it's left tackle. Because he's more natural on the right side. But, I also point out you're not, if you lose Lane Johnson, you're not replacing him with a great player. I mean, there's no way to replace Lane Johnson. There's no way to replace Jason Kelce. Like they had Andre Dillard last year, maybe the best backup left tackle in football, as evidenced by his $10 million contract. But if he had to play extensive playing time, he wasn't going to be as good as Jordan Mailata. If he had to play right tackle, he wasn't going to be as good as Lane Johnson. It's just better than everybody else. You never want to lose players. When you lose players who are all pros, you got it. It's built in. You're not going to be as good.
Right.
It's built in. But you're hoping to be Jack Driscoll-ish, where you can hold your own.
All right, two things before we get to the top of the hour. Number one, what Andrew DiCecco said with me last night, the night before on WIP, which I thought was interesting, if Howie's going to make a trade. He very specifically said he thinks what Howie will covet and target is a cover safety. That they've got the group that they have now, and they're auditioning everyone still to see who gets the.
Did you hear our back and forth yesterday, Jody? Me and Nick Sirianni about safeties.
No.
Yeah, it's good stuff. You should go back and listen.
Well, what intrigued you about that before I get to Andrew's point?
I raised Nick's ire a little bit. Because I said what I said on the show. Basically, it's like I told him it's late August, and I said we were talking to Sean Desai the other day. And he said, this is the plan. I said, it's late August. Shouldn't things be whittling down by this point and start instead of expanding essentially with Justin Evans? Andrew's right. That's why Justin Evans is in the mix. He's a coverage safety. That's what they want. And he did not like that phrase and looked at Bob Lang, the Eagles PR guy, and said, how many days we got to week one? And Bob said 22 days. And Nick said, yep, we got 22 days. So basically, look, the very existence of Reed Blankenship proves they're full of you-know-what. Because
Wait, hold on.
Reed,
Can I stop and ask a question?
sure.
This was yesterday.
Yeah.
The opening game is the 10th.
Yeah.
Yesterday was the 22nd.
Yeah.
I can do the math there. That's 19, John.
Well,
Where are they coming up with 22?
who knows? They have 9 days and 19. Yeah. I didn't say they were great at math, but that's what
I sure as hell would have objected. If you're calling my question on the carpet and you're throwing specific number in my face as to how many days you still got to go, you better get the damn number right.
Yeah, well, that part doesn't matter. But the larger point is there, the existence of Reed Blankenship. Nobody knew Reed. Reed's entrenched now.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Reed's entrenched now because he's been so solid at camp. So you can't have one literally at the same position and say you're going to Justin Evans on day 13 of camp. Day 13 of open practice, by the way. That doesn't even count all the walkthroughs and all that stuff. And you still have no firm grasp on that position. That is not a positive, Jody McDonald. That is not, no matter how you spin it, that is not a positive. Now, I know Martin Frank's going to be on in the second hour. He's a big Sidney Brown guy. If you're a conspiracy theorist and saying, oh, they're just hiding Sidney Brown so Bill Belichick doesn't know he's going to show up in week 1. Well, if they think that way, they're nuts, number one. But like Bill Belichick's going to care if Sidney Brown, rookie 3rd-round pick, is playing safety for the Philadelphia Eagles. He'll probably take advantage of it, if anything. And they don't throw the football, but nonetheless, you get my point. I mean, I always go back to last year's draft. Kyle Hamilton, you and I both loved him. Great player. Yep. I think he's going to be a great player. Kind of set him aside. And then it was Lewis Cine and Dax Hill as the 1st-round safeties. They didn't play at all, those two. Now, Cine got hurt, and people say,
no, Cine actually played, and he didn't play well.
No, he didn't play.
And then he got hurt on top of it.
No, he played on special. He had 1 defensive snap, and he didn't play at all. Their safeties were
maybe
Harrison.
I'm thinking of preseason because I remember reading about. I had a preview guy on to talk about it. He said, "No disappointment."
Didn't play at all. But that's why it was a disappointment. Cam Bynum was their Marcus Epps. He played like 100% of the snaps. And Harrison Smith got banged up a couple times. He had a game, but he played 100% when he was out there. And then their 3rd safety is a kid from Michigan named Josh Metellus. He was their 4th safety. And he got hurt on special teams. He didn't play at all. And then Dax Hill at least had the excuse of being behind a really good safety in Cincinnati, Bates, who they have now lost. So maybe he's got something, but I don't know. My point is neither of them even played. And people are saying, oh, 3rd-round pick? Yeah, no problem. I mean, there's going to be problems. I've advocated get it over with early in the season because that's the soft part of your schedule. But you talked about Derek Barnett. I'm not calling him Derek Barnett-like, but he's raw. And he goes 100 miles an hour. He's like Chip Kelly is a player. Like he's got no filter. And people will take advantage of that. With double moves and things like that. So he's raw. I get why the Eagles are have some concern. But none of this matters because whether it's Terrell Edmonds or Justin Evans or Kayvon Wallace or Sidney Brown, wouldn't you want to make a decision by this point and get Reed Blankenship and whomever as many reps as possible? And maybe they do. Now that reporters aren't there, maybe they do it and say, competitive advantage. But I don't think it's a good situation at all.
And that's why I was intrigued by what DeCecco told me. Very specific, a cover safety. not a safety, a cover safety, because they like the other safeties and what they bring to the table. Like you say, Brown, tremendous speed and aggressiveness and the like, and the fact that Edmonds is probably a good tackler, and when they go to big nickel, that he'll be the extra guy in the field when the other linebacker comes off the field. They've got some guys who do some things that they like, but specifically in coverage, they might not like any of them. So that might be an area that they reach out for come trade time, if Howie does anything over the next couple of days after this last preseason game. All right, we got Martin Frank's going to join us coming up in about 10 or 15 minutes. Let's get another timeout in here. Come back, got a couple more things I want to run by John before Martin Frank joins us. The countdown is on. Not to the preseason game against the Colts. And don't bet the game, all right? You need me to say it on the record? Don't bet the game. Don't be foolish betting preseason game. I thought about betting the Ravens the other night, and I stopped.
Oh, they screwed it, man. How about that? Game. Yeah. Stop in the street. Sam Cosme predicted. That's like Joe Namath. He predicted it.
Did you see the awkwardness of the owner of the Commanders?
Yeah,
first in the broadcast booth, and then the attempted high five at the end of the game when they actually pulled it out. Josh Harris. If there is a billionaire on this planet who has no swag whatsoever, it's Jonathan Harris. He's got zero. He's got a whole lot of money. He's a phenomenal businessman. No swag.
Hey, I'm gonna teach something to the youth of the world. I'd rather be Josh Harris with no swag than have swag and not Josh Harris.
Not Josh Harris's money. Yeah. I agree with you, McMullen. He's Johnny Mac. I'm Jody Mac. You got Mac and Mac here on Birds 365.